So, hi, Tiffany. It is great to meet you. So excited to speak with you today. So, starting off as a Black woman who is a storyteller and dedicated to truth both on and off the screen and healing, when you got the script and you read Elizabeth's story, what were your thoughts coming into it?
Um, my thoughts were pretty clear, and thank you for having me. I knew this was going to be good because you be asking the good questions. You ask the hard questions. Yeah, I did some research on you. It's like who can and trust for season three? I was like, okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes.
I appreciate that.
Um,
Thank you.
yes, of course. When I read this script, I I immediately thought this is the character in the story that I would want to play. Not because she was the good one, because she's clearly not making the best decisions in the story, but because I gravitate towards the characters that I find are interesting, and the ones that are usually not the ones that we focus on the most. I feel like most of the time in stories, the protagonist is doing something that the audience can get behind. I love stories where the protagonist is also the antagonist. And I feel like I gravitated towards Elizabeth because I wanted to make her the center. I wanted to know what would cause somebody to make the choices that she's made. Like there's got to be more to the story. So I was just automatically filling in the blank.
So, on those lines, your portrayal of her was intense, raw. We go through a lot of things, sometimes hard to watch. So, how do you prepare to emotionally step into a role like this? And then, how do you detach from it once you're in it?
That's good. So stepping in, I'm looking for her humanity. I'm looking for ways to balance what the audience can see and maybe what they don't. I'm looking for extra moments where I can like fill in the blanks, and those small moments before they call action where I might be able to sneak in a couple more things like a laugh or something that she might think is funny. Because if I know what they want to show, me, Tiffany, I'm trying to add, balance in some other layers. So I feel like that's first. How do I detach? I wish I could say that I was one of those people that can walk away from set and feel like, I can leave the work there, but that's just not true. If you're showing up to set prepared and completely off book and ready to go, then you've considered this a lot. So I work while I'm there, but I also come home and I work and I think about, what am I filming the next day? Is there something that I missed? Is there something that I can rework? So I absolutely take, the work home with me. But as far as like letting it bleed into my life, I just don't have these same thoughts. I'm not thinking like this person. This is not my experience. I'm not a mother yet. And I recognize that this person has a different life, but I try to lend myself to what might make them think the way that they do.
So Elizabeth, like you mentioned, isn't your typical, villain or antagonist, right? There's a lot of secrets and trauma there that are attached to it. So did you have any conversations with the director or with anyone in the sense of, developing out this character?
Absolutely. So on my first day of filming, it was an absolute treat. The casting director came into my trailer and she had the real Monique with her. She also had the writer of the movie, Sylvia. And then the director, Talia, came in also. And so I'm like, oh, this is the conversation I want to have. And I was asking her, just background information, like could she not have her own kids? And I told them that I had been working on this Baltimore accent. Like I had been just steeped in Baltimore culture, listening to Jess Hilarious, while, just listening to them and trying to nail this thing. And what she told me was something I couldn't have not known if I didn't speak with her. But she was like, what I loved about your audition tape is that you sounded like her. And it was triggering for me. Like you sounded so much like her that it was like it took me back to my childhood. And she was like, it's because you sounded Southern. So the story takes place in Baltimore, but Elizabeth is from North Carolina. I would not have known that. I'm from the South. I'm from St. Pete, Florida, where they make it rain in the club. So I'm from the South. All of my roots are in the South, like Alabama, Georgia area. So when I think about, Black motherhood as I experienced it as a child, it's coming from a Southern woman. So that's where my default is. And that's what I gave on the tape. And she said that not only did it resonate, but it was triggering. And that's when they knew that the part was for me.
So, as an acting coach, were there any moments that you had to coach yourself through a scene or, something that was emotional or a breakthrough?
You know what? Being an acting coach has made me a better actress. It gives you the opportunity to see the work from the outside. And I started to realize that through my weekly class, sometimes I go to set with different artists, and I also have a weekly acting class. I have started, and I particularly did that with this project. I started coaching my students on my material, and I get to hear the words through them because I've trained them to think like me as an artist. So I get to hear it back to me and make tweaks with them that I make tweaks with myself. It's my way of coaching myself, so to speak. I also coach with other teachers. Tasha Smith has been my coach for a very long time. But sometimes I coach with other, instructors from TSAW as well, but I also like to hear it on my students and tweak it that way. So it all does start to run together in a way that I didn't expect, but I always work with somebody on every part, every role.
So, knowing that Monique's story is a real story, these are real people involved in this, does it change how you approach your work? And is that something that you talk to your students about, balancing when it is a real life person in the work versus a character, even though, it's still a
Yeah,
character?
absolutely. I think I love real stories. So if there was something that I could go and look at and like hear her voice and take from her mannerisms, I would have loved to do that. I didn't have that opportunity. So what I would do is knowing that she's a real person, I try to be respectful. Like I know that their family is going to see this, and I want to give her the voice that she doesn't get to have. Monique is still here. Monique gets to tell her story. Elizabeth doesn't. And I just by being a human, I know that there are parts of the story that we don't know. There are things that happened to her that may have been some justification or at least an explanation for the decisions that she made. And I try to consider that. So if there is something from, footage or a real life that I can pull from, I will absolutely honor that. But I didn't have that opportunity. So I just try to remember that this is a real woman navigating life as it comes to her. And the same way we're going to make missteps in this life, she did too. And I try to honor that and, make it something that her family can still be proud of.
So, speaking of family, you mentioned your Southern roots and that Elizabeth also has those roots. Hearing this story, working through it, looking at Monique, and that she didn't have that connection to her past, did it make you consider anything in your lineage or have any reflections about what it means to connect with family and how that transmutes out?
I think it made me realize how much I've taken for granted for having such a close family. I've always known who my mother is. I'm wearing her face. I like my mama couldn't deny me if she wanted to. I look exactly like her. And I've always known who my father was. I grew up sharing bathwater with my cousins. Me and my sisters are very close. And I think when you have always had it, you think that everybody has it. And this story just not only just reminded me of like that's not everybody's experience, but the fact that she worked her entire life looking for answers and explanations. If I have a question about, my health or something, I can call my mom. I can call my aunties. I can figure it out. But it does give me just it lets me know like that's a privilege to be able to know who your family is and to be able to reach them whenever you want to.
Absolutely. So, along those lines, Lifetime has become a place that is centering Black women in their stories. How does it feel to be a part of a story on a network that is making a choice, especially in our current environment, to showcase that?
I love that. I love the question. I love bringing light to this. Lifetime television for women is something I used to watch every Sunday with my mother. It was her downtime, and even if I didn't always want to watch it, we was gonna watch it because that was her, her reality TV. That was her passive watching, and the movies were good. I've always known that I wanted to be an actress, so I feel like this is not just a full circle moment for me, but this is a full circle moment for all of the women in my family because we've been watching Lifetime for years, but for them to now be intentionally shedding light and investing in our stories is fulfilling. And to then on top of that, for me to be a part of it, because I was gonna watch anyway. But for me to be in it, my mom and my aunties are through the roof about this project.
I love that. So, in wrapping up, last question, you recently worked with SZA for one of them days. So, reflecting on your work both in front of and behind the camera, what does it mean to be able to showcase the full range of what Black women can do in this industry?
Man, I that experience was so great, and not just because she's SZA, but because I saw somebody who like didn't need to be as serious about doing such a great job show up every day. She was whole, she was on time, she was excited to do that work, and to be able to share in that and share in like seeing her know that she did a great job, and for it to now be number one on Netflix, it was number one in the theaters, and like to see that hard work pay off for her. I'm so grateful to have been a part of it. And that experience also taught me like how much value I can bring to a project. I was able to work just very closely with that director, and his name's Lawrence. He was so fantastic in his preparation. And it gave me the confidence to know that when it's time for me to direct my first project, I'm going to know what I'm doing. I'm going to be able to get the performances that I want to get out of my cast. So I'm really looking forward to that. I have something that's in the works, something I've been writing for the last 5 years, really, really inspired by my nieces. So I'm looking to get that into production, and I'm excited about that next step.